that there was government before. And they also have left the impression to all and sundry that the period 2015 to 2020, absolutely nothing happened. And also giving the impression that short of everything ought to have been done during that period. Allow me to express my gratitude to members on my side who rebutted those false accusations so eloquently yesterday, and I rather suspect they will so do up to Friday. As would be normal in any budget, Mr. Speaker, you would have a number of statistics about growth rate and fiscal measures and percentage growth and overall fiscal deficit and external reserves and all of that. And I have to commend Mr. Rachni Singh for doing that which is normal in the course of a budget presentation. He did it well, although I must say, on a certain statistics regarding fishing, 11% increase, it doesn't feel that way. And speaking to fisher folk, speaking to some trawler owners, it could be made a manufactured statistic. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. This budget, in my opinion, however, is sadly reflecting how oil will become dominant in this economy, Mr. Speaker, to the marginalization and minimalization of the non-oil sector. This is as striking as it is dangerous. Oil is exhaustible, it is a wasting asset, and in a few decades, it will come to an end. We have to take and always fall back on the non-oil sector. So we must be cautious, therefore, not to prevent the revenue curse, the Dutch disease as we call it, and we must prevent that from ever happening, as we know that it has happened in our neighboring country, Venezuela. But as shadow in agriculture, I want to give a reminder to some of my colleagues across the floor as to what are some of the highlights during that 2015-2020 period. Concerning agriculture, you know, they will come here and say, nothing happened. We didn't do nothing. But I am glad that even the right sizing of the sugar industry, they are continuing with. Nothing for Skel, but they start now talking about Blairmont, Albion, and of course, Iflus. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that in relation to this matter of flooding, Guyana's first cutter dredge to clean out falls were bought in our administration. 22 coastal pump stations were built and 2 major sluices. You had 2 in Region 2, you had 7. Region 3, you had 1. Region 4, you had 9. Region 5, you had 1. And Region 6, you had 4. Yes. In relation to water catchment areas in Region 9 for cattle and vegetable farmers, they said we ain't doing nothing for Rupununi. We had 8 harvesting systems. 2 at Mawara, 2 at Anai, 2 at Ruperti, and Shuliman, Shulinab, and 1 at Aranaputa. We brought in Guyana's first amphibious excavator in the Eastern Marara Conservancy. You know, if I was on a platform outside, I would have said after each one of this, don't stop the progress. In the intermediate savannas, Mr. Speaker, there was 17 kilometers from the Takama to Ibini road that was constructed with 3 concrete bridges. And you had on a last occasion, Zulfikar Mustafa, honorable member, stating nothing happened under our administration. Guyana's first state-of-the-art toxic chemical storage facility was constructed in 2015. A chemical residue laboratory for food safety in 2019. We recommissioned a newly equipped pesticide and toxic chemical laboratory. It is a certified laboratory in 2019. And by the way, this administration has inherited that, and so shall it be. At Nari, you had the first turmeric factory at Hosororo, Region 1. Yesterday, we had Ms. Pearson, honorable member, giving the impression nothing happened in these Amerindian areas. We had mangrove expansion. We had destruction from them just because of certain friends and family at regions 2, 4, 5, and 6. Guyana Marketing Corporation, they used to cuss us up for plant and chip factory. You have that at Parika Processing Plant. It produces the excellent Hana plant and chips. Farmers and agro-processors market days were created under our administration because that is what we found very important and significant for our farmers. New head office for GMC, same marketing corporation at LBI. And in fisheries, there was the first observation, monitoring, and control surveillance vessel was commissioned. Rice, the new head office at LBI, an approximately 20% increase in hectareage or hectares, increased acreage from 151 to 178 hectares. Mr. Speaker, the GLDA, a very important institution, Mr. Noel Holder informs me, and I have now verified it even with people over there. Guyana's first ever duck egg hatchery of 8,500 chicks per day. In 2017, we introduced the black giant. They talk about yard fowl yesterday, Joe. We introduced the black giant birds, a breeding program that helps especially the interior areas for meat and eggs. It was adapted for graze ranging. Guyana's first animal nutrition laboratory, total mixed rotary feeder, and upgrading of the Ibini Research Center in preparation for the intermediate savanna development. And it cost about $400 million. At the Hydromet department, the water quality lab, Guyana's first in 2019. 21 new automatic weather stations as part of the climate change adaptation policy. Billions spent on NDIA. You know that, Mr. Speaker. They know that too, that this administration at NUFC did spend millions on NDIA. And billions were spent on sugar before it was right-sized. In our first 36 months, we spent $1 billion per year just to keep that Gaisuko surviving. But they felt that we must, like them, make that which is so unprofitable and a black hole, we must pour money, and that is what is going to cause huge problems. And it is not only the $36 million, we spent a lot more by virtue of a bond since August 2019 or thereabouts. But what we got now is a second severance being paid. They're saying that we didn't run it properly. Diamond and LBI were closed down by them. They got one severance payment. But when they close it down, they could give one. When we right size and not close down, you got them giving two. Well, that is what will build resentment in this country, because you have a certain base that comes from sugar, base support, and that base support you feel must only have the cash transfers and the cash payments. Mr. Speaker, what we have here as a budget, I must say, has a lot of flaws. And I could understand that because of the inherent facts of the same players coming back, the same policies, and having the corruption and the transfer payments that are very opaque. Listen to the speakers on the other side, you would get the impression that there has been transformation. There isn't any transformation, Mr. The public, I have asked on several occasions, if you are transparent, why do you not put on the website of the Ministry of Agriculture all those people who got the flood relief, and put a name and put an address and put the amounts that they got? That is transparent government. They don't want to do that because corruption has started again. My good friend David Armagon from Region 6 indicated that he's going to call an investigation. I understand the minute he started that, what investigation you must call? And then it's done right there. Yeah, right there done. The same thing with the cash grant. Why can't you publish the names of how many people got the cash grant? Because there is obviously what is called paperwork that would have ensured that checks were paid or cash was paid. But you don't want to do that. Mr. Speaker, Auditor General will not find how many people didn't get. Auditor General are going to find how many people did not get. And so it is important for accountability and financial scrutiny that on the website be placed in relation to all these matters. You know, they come up with a piece of elections amendment here that they want the SOPs to be tabulated and put on the website. We agree. We're not going to disagree with that, but also agree to put all the money you're giving away your friends and family and favorites on the website too. Democracy, Mr. Speaker, doesn't mean winning an elections. It means good governance. And good governance means transparency. Good governance means being allowed to scrutinize, and especially the country's monies. And so all of that information ought to be made public, ought to be made accessible. Mr. Speaker, I want to say, just like how we never used to do it, a heavy reliance is paid on contingencies during the course of the running of the economy by the Ministry of Finance. In the years 2017 and 2018, we never came here for any contingencies. We had to come for contingencies for Gaisuko in 2015 and 2016. And so they have this cavalier approach to spending. They do not plan it out. They had known that severance payments, if they wanted to give the sugar workers, they could have planned it out since January last year. They didn't. They had to come here for financial paper 1, financial paper 2, then 3, then 4. And that is what you call bad planning. Mr. Speaker, it is important that with this new economic times that we have, that there has hardly been any planning in relation to a minimum wage that is going to incorporate that big money that we have. Mr. Speaker, we didn't have the money. We created a platform for you to get the money. And we expect that you are going to give the working class. Oh, it's a working class government. Yes. But the workers can't get a minimum wage. Oh, but we have today a the white PPP as against a juggernaut PPP of yesteryear. Yes, and it has now, resulted in a jagabat kind of an arrangement. A minimum wage when you have 600 million US dollars, and now CGX find oil. Lots of other Exxon wells are finding oil. But it is important to understand that it is all our property, not your property alone. And you must go and tell the sugar workers, because we are asking, and I am requesting here that we do a minimum wage that is $100,000 across the board. Mr. Speaker, today's food prices at a minimum is about $50,000. Today, rent or a mortgage or maintenance for your house, they're talking plenty about house lots and housing and all of that, is about $30,000. Rentals or mortgage payments and maintenance. The utilities come up about $8,000 a month. School supplies or transportation is $4,000. Clothing, you would want some clothing, a minimum of about $5,000 a month. Transportation, $8,000. Medicine and health, or if you're healthy, recreation, a further $5,000 a month. It comes up $110,000. That is the basic minimum. How much is enough might be very subjective. It is important that when you calculate this menu of items in a basket, you come to about $100,000. Why not, with all that money, that there was at least some plan for that? But no, Mr. Speaker, they would want to say, we can't have that. Mr. Speaker, there is need for planning, and that is why we have to understand a very important point. Climate change is going to be here with us, and we have to stop all this kind of juvenile infrastructural work as against resilient infrastructure work. We have to have experts that are going to tell us that not with the next flood like in 2005, all these infrastructural works will just collapse. We have to start thinking. It's like a new Green Deal that we are talking about. Mr. Speaker, rather than do that and ensure that you have the best of experts, we see their friends and families, the contractors, now they gone and do away with a 2% tax for contractors. That is the kickback we're talking about. That is big kickback. When we were in the administration, we found out. That is why we brought in Mr. Stasha. These people don't pay nothing. And then as soon as Mr. Stasha came in and he started the enforcement of the tax laws, you see our revenue stream under that head, taxation, mounting. Mr. Speaker, it is important to know all them contractors that will now not pay the 2% taxes. They use our roads. By the way, I understand they're the lobby for that SUV that is 2,000 and plus to knock out the excise tax. They lobby the government. The four-wheel drive. Mr. Speaker, taxation and the payment of taxes is one of the duties of every citizen. This Artachon Center, that road out there, that hospital, all have to be built by a revenue stream generally that comes down to taxation. And it is not an overtaxation, but you can't undertax people, especially like these contractors. And so you will have tremendous inequality in this country, Mr. Speaker. That is what has come back to play, and that is what will come back to haunt this country. Let me reiterate a passage that I think I had quoted some time ago about the construction industry. It is from the bottom billion Paul Collier we had brought in here immediately after we found oil, and to give us some advice. He's one of the foremost authorities from Oxford University. Corruption has its epicenters where much of it, the loot is deposited, is at banks. Among the companies that pay the bribes, two sectors seem to stand out: resource extraction and construction. And then he goes on. Construction sector has been a dirty secret. Transparency International decided to bring it to greater prominence in its global corruption report. I think that is why we gone down 2 grades in the last corruption index. Construction has all the ingredients conducive to corruption. Each project is a one-time thing only, and so cannot readily be priced. There are so many uncertainties in execution that it is not possible to drop what economists refer as the complete frank contract. That is what, and he goes on a whole chapter and talk about construction. And you know, he's talking about exactly the PPP here. I had quoted this before. Good governance is also something he mentions. Why is bad governance so persistent, Mr. Speaker? At page 66 of the book. One evident reason is that not everybody loses from it. The leaders of many of the poorest countries of the world are themselves among the global super rich. You check them over there. You check them over there. They like things the way they are. So it pays to keep their citizens uneducated and ill-informed. That is why they want Albion people just to cut cane and cut cane and cut cane. Yes, they don't want to smarten them up. Unfortunately, the senior public officials from the countries
Honorable member, just give me a few moments. We suffered a lot of damages in the control room on December the 29th. Just it again, please.
I want to state that this reminds me of a time before, of whenever I got up to speak, they blanked it, especially on NCN, and they start playing something called To Kill a Mockingbird. It was at the instruction of Mr. Jagdeo, Honorable Vice President. But that's the kind of treatment that I have come to learn that will come my way on these occasions. Mr. Speaker, yes, I understand NCN doesn't carry any of these speeches on this side. Yes, but that is what the resentment that you're playing, you don't know. I had to bring these points, Mr. Speaker, to the attention because the PPP wants to run roughshod over its rivals. This is supposed to be a rivalry, it's not an enemyship. But you want to create and provoke enemyship. That is a recipe for riot, Mr. Speaker, and can result in what is called irreparable ruination of this country. It has happened in Syria and Yemen. It has happened in other countries in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. We should not go there. They are motivated by this desire to just blank you out. You don't want to have engagement with a leader of the opposition. You don't want to talk to members, committees, and a whole host of other things. Mr. Speaker, we are then, as a result, sprinting into a calamity if we don't halt it. Mash brakes, mash brakes. Mr. You know, Mr. Speaker, I have heard their comments in the press. I have heard their comments here. The PPP must not stop until the opposition is buried. That's the line they take. PPP must not stop until the opposition is buried. It is a chokehold they unrealistically suppose they have and want to feel that their honeymoon period continues. This justifies their continuing chokehold. And as I said, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Prime Minister, you got to learn to engage with us. When we said that we want to talk about the natural resource bill that you're amending, so many people, and you did not even give us a space. Mr. Speaker, I don't know how much more time I have, but I want to say that it is important that they understand.
To give you an idea, you have 8 minutes more.
We will have to halt the corruption. We will have to be engaging. We will have to have lots more non-partisanship, and especially in the context of an oil economy now. Oil economy. Mr. Speaker, there is a lovely line in the opening of a famous novel. It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. Tale of Tears, I think it was. That resonates so poignantly, so piercingly concerning our times here in Guyana, that I feel compelled to apply with a modification in our country here. Now knowing what is happening in 2022 in our beloved country. It is the worst. It is the best of economic times because of that oil. But it is the worst of ecological times because of what is happening in the world. Honorable Minister Ashley Singh is too bright a fellow, a colleague, to not understand that that is very important. Oil having been found, Mr. Speaker, production agreements having been signed, And now the windfall of millions and billions unimagined only 7 years ago makes the best of economic times for Guyana. Especially when, you know, we have more than oil. We have a country that has cultivable lands, millions of hectares, forestry, fishing, and all of that. But to have that windfall, Mr. Speaker, at a time when so much is happening on the global and local levels, a very dismal picture is painted. As happened in 2005, we ended up with devastating floods, with untold loss of property and livelihood. We ended up with huge losses in rice, in sugar, in every other crop, forestry and livestock too. And this is the own admission of the Minister of Finance. I just want, I don't know, spare me some time, Mr. Speaker, because I want, the dismal picture is painted at page 7, 8, and 9 of the budget. And so it is important then, having found that fossil fuel which will make us rich, scientists now tell us that by burning it, it induces climate change. We Guyanese and citizens of the world can suffer what is called, as they say, a sixth mass extinction. Our planet is in peril. And all the more because we are 6 feet below sea level. And it is important we must not suffer. The IPCC in its report said we are going to have escalating climatic events, frigid winter temperatures, snowfalls, devastating floods, prolonged droughts, horrifying wildfires, deadly category 4 and 5 hurricanes. Mr. Prime Minister, you are serious when you said not in Guyana? In 2005, we had it here. Last year, we had it here. That is what they call on the flood relief. Sugar, rice, so many things. Livestock, poultry. And you telling me not in Guyana? Please.
Honorable member, the 3 minutes on the original time allocated is up. We need an extension for you to continue.
Mr. Speaker, I so moved that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude this presentation.
Thank you. Honorable member, you may continue.
So that is why we have to start studies and reports to plan for these events. What's the use of having so much money, knowing that the ecological times can come to harm us, and we have nothing of that here? All they're planning in relation to ecological events would be flood relief, and then a discriminatory practice as to who gets this flood relief. We have to, at some point, start a decoupling from a fossil economy. Is there a plan to meet these life and death challenges in this budget? There is none. But if expressions and statements in this budget are scrutinized thoroughly, I have to conclude this plan is in deficit. There is no planning at all on this important matter. What this budget does is a fascination with big numbers. It is the biggest budget ever, the biggest budget ever. That is not going to take us out of the harm's way that we are presently in. Mr. Speaker, the frightening reality we must confront, especially being so challenged by our geography, must mean that our minds must be concentrated. And our people must be led to put aside differences. We started a green policy and you cuss it down. A green policy we started, better than your low carbon development strategy, but you just deleted that. I remember 2005, Mr. Speaker. People then who had agreed on very little with each other put aside their differences to make a difference in 2005. That we were remarkable in that regard must instruct us that we can be invited on important matters, united, on important matters if we want to. These good economic times and bad ecological times is such a time that we get together, Mr. Speaker, and save ourselves. And even if we don't want to save ourselves, we must ensure that we save our children. We, and I speak here myself and probably you, Mr. Speaker, we are in the October of our years. Let us allow the saving of our children for the future. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, honorable member. Let me just ask someone to test the microphone at the opposition end.